This resume got me over 100 software engineering interviews. And I don't mean interviews at small companies, but tech giants like Palantir and Google. Today, I make more than 90% of software engineers in San Francisco, and in this video, I will show you how to write the resume that will get you interviews at the best tech companies. Let's start with rule number 1. Let's get one thing straight. Every country has its own rules when it comes to resumes. If you ignore those rules, your resume will end up in the trash. That's why the first thing you need to figure out is whether the company you're applying to expects a headshot on your resume. If you're applying to companies in the United States, the UK, or Ireland, do not put a photo on your resume. In English-speaking countries, companies try to avoid bias by focusing on your experience rather than your face. So putting a photo on your resume feels a bit off. And yeah, hiring managers might reject you. But in continental Europe, I mean countries like the Netherlands, France, or Germany, it's a different story. There, including a photo on your resume is actually expected. Usually, you put it in the top right corner of your resume, and I know there are exceptions from this rule. For example, in Germany, the law says that you don't need to do it, but it's still the norm. So if you want to find a job in Germany, you should put a photo on your resume. And trust me, it matters. Because it signals that you know the local work culture, and it's a big plus. So now you know if you should include a photo on your resume, let's talk about what that photo should look like. Please do not use a selfie from the New Year's Eve party or any pics from your sister's wedding. Your photo should say, hey, I'm professional and I know what I'm doing. That's why I recommend investing in a professional headshot just like mine. Trust me, it makes a massive difference, and I believe you should get one even if you live in the United States. Why? Because companies are sneaky. Sure, they hate photos on resumes because of the anti-discrimination laws, but their ATS will pull your photo from LinkedIn or your Google account and attach it to your application anyways. So if you got a good headshot, make sure it is uploaded to your LinkedIn profile and tied to the email account you are using to apply. And that brings us to rule number 2. Believe it or not, this is one of the most important things recruiters look at when deciding whether to interview you or reject you. Most companies prefer to hire employees from the local job market because it saves them a ton of hassle. No immigration paperwork, the candidate knows the local work culture, plus they can usually start within a couple of weeks. That means your proximity might be actually the deciding factor about interviewing you. So yeah, even if a rockstar applies from the other side of the world, you are still ahead of them because you are easier to hire. But now you might ask, what about remote-first companies? Sure, being remote first gives them access to a bigger talent pool, but it also comes with a lot of legal headaches. Every country has a different number of vacation days, sick leave rules, public holidays, and even different length of the work week. In Europe alone, people work anywhere from 34 up to 42 hours per week depending on the country. So the truth is that most remote first companies don't hire just from anywhere. Take Coinbase for example. They hire only within the United States. GitLab, on the other hand, is much more open. They hire software engineers from Europe, Asia, North and South America. That's why your resume needs to have your location right at the top. Make sure it's easy to find because remote-first companies get thousands of applicants for every job posting. The quicker a recruiter can spot it, the better your chances are. And speaking of better chances, let's move on to the rule number 3. The old rule says that your resume needs to fit on one page. Today, the average tenure for a software engineer is about a year and a half. So if you have been working for over a decade, there is no way you will fit 6 jobs into a single page unless you skip on important details. That's why the new rule is that your resume needs to fit on 2 pages, but only if you've got at least 8 years of experience. Otherwise, stick to 1. But remember, never fill your resume with fluff. Irrelevant information like your hobbies or 7 unrelated pet projects is a red flag. Why? Because it means that you have nothing to show and your resume is very generic. Many software engineers put their tech stack and skills section at the top of their resume to farm ATS keywords. I used to do it too, but then I became a hiring manager and realized that I always skip this section when I was reviewing resumes of my candidates. Why? For hiring manager, the only thing that matters is your work experience. That's why you should start with it. Your education, certifications, personal projects, spoken languages come later. And yes, even if you graduated from MIT with 4.0 GPA, you still put your work experience above your education. Start with the most recent job. Include your job title, the company name, the dates, month and year, and the location you work from. Trust me, your work location matters more than you think. Companies like Google, Amazon have offices around the world. And experience in Bangalore is very different than experience in Mountain View, California. Also, if your resume shows that you work in multiple countries and cities, that's a big plus. It shows that you aren't afraid to relocate and flexibility is always appreciated. Now, here is something important. Familiarity matters. Our brains instantly recognize names we know. Hiring managers are the same. We are wired to spot company names we recognize. So when I go through resumes, company names like Meta, Microsoft, or Google instantly grab my attention. That's why if you have worked at some niche company that nobody knows, you are starting from a disadvantaged position. But here is how you can fix it. Add a one-liner to explain what this company does. Let me give you an example. Zooplus is the largest pet food e-com in Europe. It's worth almost $4 billion and has a massive engineering team. Almost nobody knows this German company, but if you add that one-liner to your resume, everything becomes clear. And trust me, recruiters won't Google companies for you, so always give them information on the silver plate. Now we are getting to the most important rule, rule number 4. And here is where most software engineers fail. They create one generic resume and use it to mass apply for hundreds of jobs. But that's the fastest way to get rejected. In today's job market, tech companies are flooded with applications. Recruiters are picky, and generic resumes go straight to the trash. If you are serious about landing a job, tailoring your resume to the role is the most effective thing you can do to stand out. So let me show you how you can do it using a real-world example. I found one remote software engineering position at Coinbase, and I think I will be a good fit for this role. So here is the job posting. Coinbase is hiring a full-stack engineer to build their developer platform, a tool that allows developers to integrate crypto into their apps in under 30 seconds. They are looking for a full-stack engineer with mastery in Go and JavaScript, and experience in Ruby, TypeScript, Python, and Java, familiarity with databases such as PostgreSQL, MySQL, and MongoDB, and caching tools like Redis or Memcached. Plus, experience with AWS, distributed systems, crypto wallets, key management, and blockchain protocols. Oh, and also experience in building developer APIs, open source SDKs, and writing developer documentation. So how would I tailor my resume to that role? Here is the first point I would include. Designed, developed, and maintain a high availability Oracle system powering Ethereum validators operation at scale, managing over 1 million Ethereum, worth over $3.6 billion, built with Python, PostgreSQL, and Redis. This point hits multiple checkboxes. First, it signals my crypto experience because I use a lot of technical jargon related to cryptocurrencies. So speaking about tech in your resume is completely fine and you should definitely do it. Mentioning big numbers like 1 million Ethereum worth over $3 billion grabs attention. Big numbers like that build instant credibility, and you should always spam your resume with impressive numbers whenever you can't defend them. At the end, I listed the tech stack that is aligned with the job description. Now, let's look into the next point. Build and operate a reward tracking system and developer-facing REST API used by institutional partners to retrieve validator performance, rewards, and status. The system was designed in the microservice architecture with components written in TypeScript, Java, PostgreSQL, Redis, and various AWS services such as Lambda, S3, and CloudFront. This bullet point does a few things. I call out that I created REST APIs for other developers, not just internal tools. I'm mentioning the microservice architecture, showing my experience with distributed systems, which is important to Coinbase. Now, let's look into the next point. Reduced API latency from 5 seconds to under 300 milliseconds globally by designing a multi-region edge caching solution using AWS CloudFront, Lambda at Edge, and Redis. Improved reliability and helped to hit a 99.95% SLA. This one proves that I know how to solve performance problems. Reducing latency from 5 seconds to under 300 milliseconds is a huge win, and achieving a 99.95% SLA proves it wasn't just fast. It was resilient at scale. Remember, whenever you can back up your work experience with metrics like this, your credibility is skyrocketing. So don't hesitate to use them. Now, let's look into the next point. Develop a zero-knowledge proof generation system in Golang, enabling on-chain verification of staking operations. I know this one is hard to decipher if you aren't working in crypto, but I'm trying to show that I've written production-level code in Golang, even if I'm not a Go expert. Also, I'm highlighting understanding of cryptographics that is aligned with the job requirements. Now, let's look into the last point. Designed and shipped secure REST API for exposing validator state and orchestrating staking flows. Led creation of API docs, onboarding guides, and integration examples to support external developers. This point proves that I'm a perfect fit to work on a Coinbase developer platform. It shows I've built tools that are actually used by other developers, not just backend services. And even though I haven't built SDKs, I have written the documentation, integration guides, and developer examples that go with the APIs, which shows that I understand what makes a great developer experience. And that's how I would tailor my resume if I would like to apply for this role. This job was almost perfectly aligned with my work experience, and even then I didn't meet every single requirement, and that's totally normal. You don't need to tick every single box to land an interview, but the rule of thumb is that you must match about 70% of the criteria to be even considered. If you match only a small portion of the requirements, it's usually better to skip because you risk your chances with that company in the future. So now you know how to write a tailored resume for the job posting. You just need to repeat this process for other roles on your resume. If you follow this strategy, you won't need to worry about ATS or stuffing your resume with keywords. But if you are still curious about how ATS actually works, you should watch this video next, because I've been hiring software engineers for the last 6 years and use the ATS on a daily basis. And I can tell you, keywords matter far less than most tech influencers say. So click on the video now, and I will see you there.